The focus of this week's module is to introduce the field of public administration and to offer a variety of definitions about public administration and public administrators. So, who are public administrators? The administration and management of governmental and nonprofit or non-governmental organizations is a highly technical endeavor. Public administrators are professionals and experts in managing highly technical bureaucracies. They implement and interpret policy enacted by elected officials. They have legal obligations to serve the public good. And professional administrators in governmental and nonprofit organizations operate within a political context, but should remain non-political. Our text identifies a variety of definitions of public administration and focuses on 4 areas. The first area is the political definition of public administration. Public administration is what a government or nonprofit organization does. As a profession, public administration has developed values and ethical standards, but as an activity, it merely reflects the cultural norms, beliefs, and realities of society. And public administration is the totality of the working day activities of all the world's bureaucrats. The administration of government is both direct and indirect. Governments directly provide services like mortgage insurance, mail delivery, and electricity, national defense, activities such as that. Indirect activities occur when a government pays a private contractor to provide goods or services. This is an example, building the space shuttle, or building a dam, or perhaps building a highway if that's contracted out.
Another definition outlined in the book under political definitions of public administration is that public administration is a phase of public policy making. Governments are in a constant flurry over whether to do or not to do. Whatever they do or do not do is public policy. All such decisions, including decisions not to make a decision, are made by those who control political power and implement by the administrative officers of the bureaucracy. Public policy and public administration are 2 sides of the same coin. One side decides what to do, the other actually does it. That side acts out the policies. Because policymaking is a continuous process, it cannot end with implementation. Whenever government does something, critics will suggest ways to do it better. When this happens, new decisions must be made, even if the decision is to avoid making a decision.
Another element in the political definition of public administration is implementing the public interest. The public interest is a universal label in which political actors use to justify the policies and programs that they advocate. The public interest is a commonly accepted public good. The rise of administrative discretion in the face of legislative vagueness means that the job of the unanimous administrator is to define the public interest.
Throughout history, politicians, philosophers, theorists, and journalists have tried to define the public interest, and therefore guide policy in preferred directions. Walter Lippmann was a journalist and political philosopher. Here he is pictured on the Time magazine cover from October 3, 1937. He wrote that the public interest may be presumed to be what men would choose if they saw clearly, thought rationally, acted disinterestedly, and benevolently. Clear eyes and rational minds are common enough. Finding leaders who are disinterested and benevolent is the hard part. Pictured on the right is E. Pendleton Herring. He accepted that laws passed by legislatures are necessarily the products of legislative compromise. They're often intentionally so vague that they need further definition. The bureaucrat has the task of giving defining detail to the general principles embedded in a statute by issuing supplemental rules and regulations. In effect, it becomes the job of the anonymous bureaucrat to define the public interest. Herring is a significant voice in what political science calls group theory. Group theory is a school of thought that views government as representing various group interests and negotiating policy outcomes among them. According to Herring, the most basic task of a bureaucrat is to establish working relationships with the various special interests so that their concerns can be more efficiently brokered. Edmund Burke was a British political philosopher and a member of Parliament during the time of the American Revolution. He is thought of by many as the father of modern conservative thought. Among his famous speeches is a 1774 speech titled Speech to the Electors of Bristol. A famous quote from that speech is this: "Your representative owes you not his industry only, but his judgment, and he betrays instead of serving you if he sacrifices it to your opinion." In other words, sound decisions must be based on sound judgment, not simply the favored opinion by the majority of a representative's electorate.
One more aspect in the political definition of public administration is that public administration is doing collectively that which cannot be effectively done privately or individually. It was Abraham Lincoln who said, "The legitimate object of government is to do for a community of people whatever they need to have done, but cannot do it all, or cannot so well do for themselves in their separate and individual capacities."
What started out as voluntary service, such as fire protection or care for the elderly, becomes institutionalized as people indicate a preference via elections to pay taxes, so that once voluntary activities are now a collective action as a government function. Collective action is a remedy for the tragedy of the commons. The tragedy of the commons occurs when individuals acting in their own self-interest destroy public resources, such as land and water. In this context, public administration is central to the process of regulating individual behavior in the interest of the common good. Overfishing lakes and rivers, or polluting or overgrazing lands are examples where the tragedy of commons applies. As in the diagram here, you have an open pasture of 40 acres. Let's say it's government-owned land. The government will allow up to 20 cows to graze on that land. It's considered a sustainable use at that point. If you add more than 20 cows, let's say a farmer brings 30 cows, that crosses the tipping point where the cows overgraze the land and it becomes unproductive and unuseful as grazing land. Administrators put in laws and rules to limit the amount of number of cows who can graze on that land in order to allow it to be productive year after year.